Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Please, all the best. Maiyappan.
So good afternoon, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am.
On behalf of Department of Physical Education, SRM Institute of Science.
Sir, mute எடுக்கணும் sir.
And from YMCA College of Physical Education, and I welcome all the participants, Department of Physical Education, PhD and MPhil scholars, and beloved my dear department staff members. Welcome one and all. Over to Maiyappan. Maiyappan, நீங்க start பண்ணலாம்.
Sir, start பண்ணலாமா sir? Sir,
Start பண்ணலாம் Maiyappan.
okay, sir. Good afternoon to all. Sir,
Slide share ஆகல பாரு.
என்ன பண்ணலாம்? உமா மேம். சார் உமா மேம் போஸ்ட் கொடுத்தாங்க. சார் உமா மேம் போஸ்ட் கொடுக்க சொல்றாங்க சார்.
கொடுத்தாச்சுங்கப்பா சஞ்சய்
கொடுத்தாச்சு ரெண்டுமே கொடுத்தாச்சு சார்.
ஓகே மேம். ஓகேங்க சார். Good afternoon to all. I am S.Maiyappan, full-time research scholar of Department of Physical Education and Sports Sciences, SRMIST. I would like to defend my research topic entitled Effect of Isolated and Combined Interval Training and Yogic Practices on Selected Physical Fitness, Physiological and Skill Performance Variables among Coastal Area Kabaddi Players. Sports have become an important social and cultural activity of the modern world, which is being given the rightful place to deserve by the nation and society of the world. Training is a systematic program planned to improve proficiency over skills and develop the caliber of sportsman for a better performance in a particular game or sport event. Interval training. Interval training is perhaps the most versatile method for improving endurance of various types. In interval method, the exercise is done at relatively higher intensity with intervals of incomplete recovery. What should be done with sufficient speed and duration so that the heart rate goes up to 180 beats per minute. After this, there should be a recovery period, and when heart rates come to 120 to 130 beats per minute, the work should be started again. Yogic practices. Yoga is one of India's wonderful gift to mankind. One of the valuable qualities is that it builds up story physical health through the practice of a system of exercises called asanas, which keep the body clean and fit. Yogic exercises are essential for speedy removal of toxins, for good blood circulation, and for all internal process to function smoothly. A regular practice of yoga leads one to control his mind, body, and also soul. The peacefulness of the body and mind is achieved through yogic practices which bind both physical and mental disciplines. Objective of the study. The research may be give assistance to know the effectiveness of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected physical fitness variable among coastal area kabaddi players. The research may help to evaluate contribution of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected physiological variables among coastal area kabaddi players. The study will assist to determine the contribution of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected skill performance variable among coastal area kabaddi players. Statement of the problem. The purpose of the study was to evaluate the effect of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected physical fitness, physiological and skill performance variable among coastal area kabaddi players. Hypothesis. It was hypothesis that 12 weeks of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices will significantly improve the selected physical fitness variable, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, Skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability among coastal area kabaddi players. It was hypothesis that 12 weeks of combined interval training and yogi practices could significantly improve the selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity. Skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability, then isolated interval training and yogi practices among coastal area kabaddi players. Significance of the study. The performance of the subject in various tests and express rating may give a clear idea to the coaches and enable them to analyze the assets and weaknesses of the players and design the technical training according to their needs. The study will expose the scientific foundation of interval training and yogic practices that help subject to improve the performance on selected dependent variables. Delimitations. The subject for the study were delimited to the coastal area main kabaddi players from Chennai, Kanchipuram, and Tiruvallur districts, and age of them fell between years of 18 and 21. The study was delimited to 60 kabaddi players. Further, they were randomly separated in 4 equal groups. The course of training period was confined to 12 weeks. Limitations. The impact of such factors like regular pattern, diet, recreational activities were considered as limitations. The earlier knowledge of subject in activities were considered as a limitation. The influence of the financial status of the subject was considered as a limitation. Selection of subject. The research was designed to estimate the effect of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected physical fitness, physiological, and skill performance variable among coastal area kabaddi players. To attain the purpose, 60 men kabaddi players from Chennai, Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur district were selected, and age of them fell between years of 18 and 21. Experimental variable selection. Dependent variables. Physical fitness variables. Speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance. Physiological variables. Resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity. Performance variable. Riding ability, defending ability. Independent variables. 12 weeks of isolated interval training, 12 weeks of isolated yogic practices, and 12 weeks of combined interval training and yogi practices. Experimental design. True random group design was implemented in the study that consists of pre-test and post-test to accomplish the purpose. 60 coastal area kabaddi players from Chennai, Kanchipuram, and Tiruvallur district, Tamil Nadu, were randomly selected, and the age of them fell between the years of 18 and 21. The subjects were separated into 4 equal groups. Tests were taken from the subject prior the treatment on selected dependent variables. The experimental groups were engaged in their specific isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices for a course of 12 weeks. The post-tests were taken on the selected dependent variables after a course of 12 weeks of respective isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices. Selection of test. 50 hours test was used to measure speed, and the unit of measurement was in second. 4 into 10 yards shuttle run test was used to measure agility, and the unit of measurement was in second. Cooper 12 minutes run and walk test used to measure cardiorespiratory endurance, and the unit of measurement was in kilometer. Radial pulse test was used to measure resting pulse rate, and the unit of measurement was in beats per minute. Holding the breath for time test was used to measure breath holding time, and the unit of measurement was in second. Digital spirometer test was used to measure vital capacity, and the unit of measurement was in liters. Experts rating was used to measure riding ability and defending ability, and the unit of measurement was in points. Statistical techniques. Analysis of covariance. Statistical techniques was used to test the adjusted post-test mean differences among the experimental group. If the adjusted post-test result was significant, the surface post test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. To facilitate the statistical analysis, the following short forms were used. IITG, isolated interval training. IYPG, isolated yogi practices group. CITAYPG, combined interval training and yogi practices group. CITG, control group. SOV, source of variance. SOS, sum of squares. DF, degrees of freedom. MS, mean squares. OFR, obtained F ratio. TFR, table F ratio. PT, pre-test. PTT, post-test. APTT, adjusted post-test. PTM, pre-test mean. PTTM, post-test mean. APTTM, adjusted post-test mean. ST, standard deviation. MDF, mean differences. CIV, confidence interval value. LOC, level of confidence. BW, between. WI, within. SPHT, success post-hoc test. Computation of analysis of covariance of speed. The obtained F ratio for the pretest mean 0.78, which was lesser than the table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in speed among the groups before training. In the post-test obtained F ratio 36.34, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in speed among the group after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference in among the groups at 0.05 level. Such case post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such case post-hoc test of speed. The above table proved that there were significant differences between the adjusted means of the groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. Pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means of speed are presented through a bar diagram for a better understanding of the speed. Results of speed. Computation of analysis of covariance of agility. The obtained F ratio for the pre-test mean 0.58, which was lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in agility among the groups before training. In post-test, the obtained F ratio 14.42, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in agility among the groups after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was a significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such post-hoc test of agility. The above table proved that there were significant differences between the adjusted means of groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means of agility are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of agility. Computation of analysis of covariance of cardiorespiratory endurance. The obtained F ratio for the pre-test mean 1.14, which lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in cardiorespiratory endurance among the group before training. In post-test, the obtained F ratio 174.85, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was significant improvement in cardiorespiratory endurance among the group after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such post-hoc test was used to determine significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such post-hoc test of cardiorespiratory endurance. The above table proved that there were significant differences between the adjusted means of the groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means of cardiorespiratory endurance are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of cardiorespiratory endurance. Computation of analysis of covariance of resting pulse rate. The obtained F ratio for the pre-test mean 1.07, which was lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in resting pulse rate among the group before training. In post-test, we obtained F ratio 17.82, which was higher than the table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in resting pulse rate among the group after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such this post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such this post-hoc test of resting pulse rate. The above table proved that there was a significant difference between adjusted means of groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjust post-test means of resting pulse rate are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of result of resting pulse rate. Computation of analysis of covariance of breath holding time. The obtained F ratio for pre-test mean 1.28, which was lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in breath holding time among the groups before training. In post-test, the obtained F ratio 7.87, which was higher than the table value of 2.77, which means there was significant improvement in breath holding time among the group of after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such post-hoc test of breath holding time. The above table proved that there were significant differences between adjusted means of the groups, and the combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means of breath holding time are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of breath holding time. Computation of analysis of covariance of vital capacity. The obtained F ratio for the pre-test mean 1.47, which means lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in vital capacity among the group before training. In post-test, the obtained F ratio 255.79, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in vital capacity among the group after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such this post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such this post-hoc test of vital capacity. The above table proved that there were significant differences between adjusted means of groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices and group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means also vital capacity are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of vital capacity. Computation of analysis of covariance of riding ability. The obtained F ratio for pre-test mean 1.17, which means lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in riding ability among the groups before training. In post-test, the obtained F ratio 141.71, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in riding ability among the group after training. The adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was significant difference among the groups at 0.05 level. Such post-test test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such post-hoc test of riding ability. The above table proved that there were significant differences between the adjusted means of groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and adjusted post-test means of riding ability are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of riding ability. Computation of analysis of covariance of defending ability. The obtained F ratio of pre-test mean 1.14, which was lesser than table value of 2.77, and hence there was no significant difference in defending ability Among the groups before training, in post-test, the obtained F ratio 57.64, which was higher than table value of 2.77, which means there was a significant improvement in defending ability. Among the groups after training, the adjusted post-test obtained value was also higher than table value, and hence there was a significant difference among the group at 0.05 level. Such piece post-hoc test was used to determine the significance of the paired mean differences. Computation of analysis of such piece post-hoc test of defending ability. The above table proved that there were significant differences between the adjusted means of groups. The combined interval training and yogi practices group had better improvement than the other groups. The pre-test, post-test, and the adjusted post-test means of defending ability are presented through a bar diagram for better understanding of the result of defending ability. Discussion on hypothesis. The first hypothesis expressed that 12 weeks of isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices will significantly improve the selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, and skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability among coastal area kabaddi players. Coastal area kabaddi players. The outcomes of this study confirm that there was remarkable effect on account of impact of 12 weeks isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices on selected dependent variables, and hence the first hypothesis was accepted on above said variables. The second hypothesis expressed that 12 weeks of combined interval training and yogi practices would significantly improve the selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, and the skill performance variable, namely riding ability and defending ability, and the isolated interval training and yogi practices among coastal area kabaddi players. The findings of the study disclosed that there was a remarkable effect on account of the impact of 12 weeks of combined interval training and yogi practices on selected dependent variables than isolated interval training and yogi practices, and hence the second hypothesis was accepted on above said variables. Conclusions. Isolated and combined interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved the selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, and skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability compared to control group. Combined interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved that selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, than isolated interval training and yogi practices. Combined interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved that selected physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, than isolated interval training and yogi practices. Combined interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved that selected skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability, than isolated interval training and yogi practices. Combined interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved that selected skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability, than isolated interval training and yogi practices. Isolated interval training and yogi practices remarkably improved that selected physical fitness variables, namely speed, agility, and cardiorespiratory endurance, and physiological variables, namely resting pulse rate, breath holding time, and vital capacity, and the skill performance variables, namely riding ability and defending ability compared to control group. Recommendations. The outcome of the study confirmed that interval training and yogi practices had remarkable positive modification on all the dependent variables, and hence The training program may be utilized to enhance the performance of the players in their respective sport. The outcome of the study proved that interval training and yogic practices were more effective in improving the performance. Hence, it may be carried out for both men and women for varied games and sports. Suggestion for further research. Great chances are there to execute identical studies with different physical fitness, physiological, and skill performance variables. Enormous chances are there to execute identical studies in major games such as football, hockey, basketball, go-go, tennis, volleyball, and handball. Thank you.
Over to Senior Professor, External Dr. Jyoti Dayananda. Madam, any comments, madam?
A beautiful presentation. No comments. Maiyappan has literally done very well. Very good to let me congratulate the guide and the scholar both for excellent. It's a very vast study. It is not a small study with so many tables, so many bar diagrams, so much of discussion. Hats off. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Thirumalai sir. Sir, Thirumalai sir. Sir, any comments, sir?
Mohan, okay, Mohan. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Maiyappan, what are thanks, pa? What are thanks?
I would like to express my sincere thanks to the pre-PhD Viva Voce External Professor Dr. Thirumalai Kumar, TNPUSU, and Associate Professor Dr. Jyoti, YMCA, for their valuable suggestions. I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to my supervisor, Dr. R. Mohankrishnan, Director of Sports, SRMIST. He has proficient guidance and encouragement and the constant help to extend through the period of my study. And I would like to convey to my heartfelt thanks to my department staffs, PhD guides, PhD students, and MPhil students, and those who are present there, and also those who encourage me during my research study. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the students who volunteered to be the subject without frustration and with full commitment. Finally, my thanks to all well-wishers who are directly and indirectly helped me in the successful competition in the study. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, one and all. Uma, conclude பண்ணுங்க. Thank you so much. Madam, thank you, madam. நான் இப்ப முடிச்சு போன்ல வரேன், madam. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you.